Hey guys, today I just wanted to make a video talking about this. This is an African milk tree. It is Euphorbia Trigona Rubra. They have a version of this that's just green, but this one has little red maroon leaves, and parts of the stem are also red. Show this side, that's a pretty good angle. So this is a pretty cool plant, a pretty cool euphorbia. So it's in the Euphorbia family, which my last video was also about that. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about the care and propagation of this one, because I've been having a difficult time finding care videos for euphorbia. So euphorbia, they are kind of in the middle of cacti and succulents. Most of them are native to Africa, and these guys can be okay with a little bit more water than you would give a cacti or succulent. I've found that they actually prefer the soil to be slightly moist. So what I usually do is I'll stick my finger in the soil, like the top 2 inches, and if it's dry, then I'll water it. So that's kind of where I'm going with the Euphorbia family. Requires a little bit more water than cacti and succulents. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about with this plant is soil. So for soil for this plant, you want something well draining. Poor quality soil is totally fine, or you can do just your general purpose cacti and succulent soil. So you want this to stay moist all the time, deep down into the soil. I found that these euphorbia have a little bit deeper roots than cacti. One of the things about the soil that I will say is pretty important is that you want the soil line to come up to the bottom few inches of the plant. So that couple inches that you'll be feeling is going to dry out. Then you want your stem to be under the soil line that much so that your stem doesn't rot. So that's one of the big things that I've noticed about this. Just don't plant it too deep, or if you're repotting, just don't put too much soil on top of the stem line. You can kind of see this one here has some dry spots at the bottom, probably where the soil line was before. It is a little bit of a problem for these guys for stability, just that when you replant them, they tend to lose a little bit of that stability and they start to shake a little bit. You may want to like prop them up with pieces of wood for a little while until their root system develops. That's just something that I've noticed with these guys. And then let's move on to water. So like I said, you want these guys to stay moist. You want the top few inches of soil to dry out before you water again. If you're growing this inside, you're obviously going to have to water it a lot less than if you're growing it outside. I am growing this outside and it is Arizona, so the top few inches of soil is pretty much dry every day or every other day. So I water it pretty often. If you're living somewhere where the humidity is a little bit higher and your soil is not going to be drying out as often, then you can probably water it once a week or every other week. I would say just check the soil, stick your finger in the top 2 inches, and then see if it is dry. Then it'll be time to water it. One of the things that I have also noticed, if you don't want to stick your finger into the soil, is that the stems, they start to get a little thin if it is needing water. So you can physically notice that. Oh, stop. Oh my God. There's an ant biting me here. Yeah, so one of the things that you can do for these guys to check to see if they need water, if the soil is super dry and you're just not sure and you don't want to overwater it, you're a little bit paranoid about overwatering it, you can squeeze the stems, and if they're firm, then you know you're good. You don't need to water it. And if they're looking a little thin and they have a little bit of give to them, then you can probably water it. And then we'll talk about lighting for these guys. So although they are closely related to cacti and succulents, they don't really enjoy a lot of direct sunlight. If anything, if you were going to give it direct sunlight, then I would say only maybe an hour in the early morning sun where it's not so intense. Otherwise, during the day, these guys appreciate a lot of bright, filtered light. Again, we are in my greenhouse, so the light in here is filtered and it gets sunlight all day. It's pretty bright in here, and it will grow pretty well for you. So that's one thing. Another thing to note about these guys is that they do prefer to grow in a container. So if you're growing this inside, obviously it's going to be in a container, but if you're growing this outside, then don't plant it directly in the ground. It might have a hard time standing up, and you might have a hard time with stability for this, and it might fall over. It makes a pretty good house plant. It's really, I think that it's really nice looking with these little red leaves. I think they're adorable, and the stems are just really nice to look at. You can get them pretty full, or you can get like ones that are long stem that just grow all the way up, that don't have very many arms. It just depends. Yeah, I don't know. This is one that I really love. Obviously, this one is still my favorite. But I have a few other Euphorbia that I think I'm gonna make some videos on, because I've just had a hard time finding videos on the care for these guys, because they are all very similar, but I just feel like you want to be sure that you're taking care of them in the right way. So yeah, and then the last thing that I want to show you guys is just want to show you guys how to propagate these. I did show you a propagation that I did for my Euphorbia lactea, the white ghost cactus, and I have propagated this already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where to cut. You can see that this has a lot of arms. So where you'd want to cut it is you want to cut it exactly where the arm meets the main stem. So this would be a pretty good place to cut, right here. Again, this is Euphorbia, so when you cut them, they have a white sap that comes out. The sap can be an irritant. Don't get it on your skin. Don't touch it and then touch your eyes or your mouth or your face. You can use gloves if you want to. I have noticed with this guy that since the attachment to the main stem is so small, that not a lot of sap comes out, and it leaves a very minimal scar because it has these arms coming out, where usually there's a dry spot where it is attached to the main stem. So what I do is I usually cut that, and then I don't get the sap on me, and then I rinse the end off a little bit, and then I just get a little pot of soil, a little 4-inch pot, or 3-inch, sorry, and then I just stick it right in the soil, and then I leave it for I'd say about 2 days, and then I'll start watering the soil, keeping it moist, consistently moist. This cutting has been in here for a month about, and I will show you it does have some roots, so pull this out of here. You can see it has a small root system forming, so I'm just gonna keep it moist. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. They're super easy to grow. They're really nice to look at, and they're just not fussy. They're just easy compared to some of the other plants that I have, especially as a house plant. If you want this as a house plant, it's one of the easier ones to grow because it doesn't require any special humidity. It just requires a lot of bright light, well-draining soil, and just keeping the soil moist. It can totally tolerate drying out completely if you would like to do that, but I found that it does a little bit better if you keep the soil moist. So that's pretty much it. That's all I have to say about this one. Hopefully you found this helpful. I feel like Euphorbias are just super underrated. So I just, I really like this one, and I feel like not a lot of people like Euphorbias for some reason, just because they're in the cacti family, and I know that a lot of us are houseplant lovers out there, and cacti cacti and euphorbia are not as popular. Succulents are very popular, but euphorbias can be beautiful too. I mean, look at that red color. Anyways, sorry. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful, and we'll see you next time.